Right on time, 12 o'clock. Look at that.
Hey,
Um, so today, everyone, thank you for joining us. We got a bunch of familiar faces there. Caroline, Daryl, Lynette, g'day, Renee. Thanks for joining us today. Carla, hello, Carla. We're talking branding, all things branding. And this is something that we here at 5x5 are really, really passionate about. And you can see the sub headline, it's all about consistency. So as I get older and wiser and more gray keeps appearing in my beard, I realize more and more that life is very much around consistency, showing up and doing the work, the good things day in, day out, and branding is no different to that. So this wonderful man on my left, his name is Sam Horn. I've had the pleasure of working side by side with Sam for almost 9 years now. He is our head designer here at 5x5. A very passionate, driven, awesome guy that anything he applies himself to, he goes 110% at. And I'm really blessed to have him in my life, and we are going to deconstruct the branding and the design process. So, Sammy, I'm going to ask you a hard-hitting question straight out of the bat. If you want to say hello to everyone, and
how do you?
just maybe answer the question: what it is you love about design? Why are you doing design? Why are you not digging trenches or building houses or something else like that? Talk to me.
Possibly you've heard this answer from a creative before in the past. Like what it is creativity for me comes quite naturally. It's something that from like a super young age I was, always knew I sort of had that flair in me. Depending on what it was, whether it was drawing or whatever I was doing, I took quite a lot of pride and was quite proud and gravitated towards those sort of creative fields. And yeah, as I grew up and time passed, I just naturally gravitated to the world of design, like branding and web design. And it is who I am. You can't change who
Awesome.
you are, and that's why.
Yeah, you're a very creative guy, but you're a very like methodical and like systems driven guy as well. So I think when you combine the two,
Yeah.
super powerful. And that's what has made you so prolific and so consistent over the years. So we're talking about branding. Why should you even care about branding, and can you afford not to? And the reasons why that you can't afford not to, first impressions count. Whether you like it or not, it is your time to put on the nice frock, the nice power suit, and basically present the best version of yourself aesthetically. It is a way to differentiate in the market. It allows you to elevate yourself. It allows you to build credibility. It shows that you're a stable business that is invested in itself and its infrastructure. And ultimately, it's going to elevate you in the marketplace above your competitors. So there are a few sort of key reasons why you should care. This very wealthy man who has built a wildly successful business has been saying that your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. This is your reputation. This is your time to shine when you're not physically there. And I thought that was a pretty awesome quote, just sort of reiterating that. So apart from the points that I've already made in terms of why you should care, what's it actually going to do? How's it going to put more dollars into your bank account from a bottom line perspective? And if we look at the numbers, Adobe commissioned a report, and this was a really interesting report. We'll actually put this link in the show notes. And it said that design-led companies reported 41% higher market share. Like, these are massive numbers. These are design-driven organizations. 46% have a competitive advantage overall. They have 50% more loyal customers, and of the businesses that are investing in their brand and design, 70% of them had a far superior digital presence, so to their competitors. So like just looking at the pure numbers, it's a pretty compelling argument. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a bit of a branding process with Sammy. We're going to keep it nice and punchy, and just want to sort of pop the hood in terms of what actually, what is the process that we go through? Like this is imagining what's going through Sam's head when we say, hey mate, we got another branding assignment for you. He's channeling his inner Zach Gandolfini's, and so we're just going to go through that step by step. So Sammy, we put a job on your Trello board, and we say we need to design a new logo for a client. The client's like a startup, and typically we will try and extract some sort of brief. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about this sort of key step.
Yeah, sure. Before I dig into the brief, I think it's super cool for someone, in that creative field as a designer, sort of see that previous slide that we were touching on around the actual difference that design makes within, a specific organization or just within business in general. And, it's a massive part to have sales as a huge part of growing and scaling a business. But it's, as I said, it's really cool to see that design does matter at the end of the day.
I matter in the world.
Yeah, I'm being standing up with my team. So it's really cool to see that. So when it comes to the initial step, as John said, like if you're given a task, brief is the first port of call. So the briefing is where like all the key points around, that specific task that you're working on, being, branding in this instance, which is what we're talking about, outlines, the organization, what it stands for, its target audience, business offerings, all those sort of, I guess, intricate details around that specific project. Goes into the brief. The designer then consumes all that information, and that's the first stage, is understanding.
That's cool. And we got a bit of a crude way of saying this, which is sort of like crap in, crap out, right? Mm-hmm. It's really about like, if a client takes the time and the effort to actually critically think around this sort of foundational stuff, then the end result is we just get like a much better understanding the lay of the land, and we can go into it with our best ideas rather than, it evolving and iterating and all that sort of stuff. So it's really critical that if you are going through a branding process, to put some real time and thought into your branding brief. So step 2, someone like Sam would get that brief, interpret that brief, and then you'd go and do some research. So maybe talk about this step, Sammy.
Yeah, so this is just consuming all those points that I just touched on previously with that came with the brief. So you're understanding, there's target audiences, all those intricate details around the project that you're currently working on. And then you go away. I use various different sites, websites, for just seeing what's currently happening within the industry, but furthermore to sort of dig into certain, say, brands for a certain sector. So if you're designing a logo / brand for an industry such as construction, there's going to be a certain direction that you need to take to best present to that sort of audience. So I go away, research sites such as Dribbble.com, which it's just a compository of best designers in the world. They've got all their best work there, so I just utilize that to sort of get in flow, figure out what's happening, and then go from there.
That's cool. That's cool. I thought you were going to say dentistry logo, and then because you've done about 15 dentistry logos, and you're like, no, the dentist. But we love you, dentists, and we will make your new logo look completely unique and like nothing ever seen in this world. Yep. So then we go number 3, which is the logo concept time, and this is where the creative juices start flowing. So maybe talk about this picture here, Sammy, and the process that you go through.
Yeah, so what you can see there is just me scribbling away, trying to come up with some ideas. And basically the first 2 steps where I've consumed information around what the actual task is and who it's for. Second step was researching, figuring out ideas. And then, pencil goes to paper and I start coming up with various different concepts. And this is the initial phase, just to try and get that brain dump onto paper. Some designers don't use pencil and paper. It seems to be sort of like depending on who you go to, an older school approach, but I still find it really useful just to sort of get those ideas out, figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work, which is super important because it's, that logo / brand creative phase, and especially the initial step is that process of elimination. There's so many concepts that you'll come up with that actually won't even make it to the client. Usually the best concepts are the one that make it through the presentation at the end.
Love it. So then we get into step 4, which is the exciting bit where the logos start coming together and you start sort of solidifying and refining your ideas. So maybe just sort of talk about this step.
Well, what you're seeing on screen, perfect example of after I've gone pencil to paper, I've come up with some ideas, I then get granular and in different directions, because with each specific task, when you're coming up with, say, a logo, you can go down different routes. It's going to be, slightly different, accented to a different sort of target audience. And you can see an example of that on screen. You've got the same brand utilizing the same sort of fundamentals with color, but each sort of have their own accent, whether it be typography, like text styling, or cleanliness, because, your client at the end of the day needs to have that, needs to have vast options to figure out what's going to, suit their specific business the best. Yep. So that's what we're looking at on screen in concepts.
Cool. So some context. This is a real client, venture capital firm, and this is the finished product. This is what they went with. So this is the primary logo, and this was more of an icon sort of style logo, Sam?
Correct. That was the fallback. So when we're creating the brand identity, it's not just a logo, and that's something that I really wanted to touch on today. Individuals that aren't within the creative or branding world think of, branding is just a logo. It's a lot more than that, right? It's understanding, fonts, typography, color schemes, all those sorts of fundamental pieces, when put together, create the finalized brand. So what we're looking at here is on the right, the finalized primary logo. Then on the left, what we're seeing is that fallback minimalist icon that could be utilized, say, for social media profile shots in the profile section of Facebook, Instagram. You've got limited real estate, right? So there's no point in coming up with this awesome, rectangular, elongated style logo, but then it actually can't be legible when it's condensed in sizing. So that's the foresight that needs to come in with logo design and branding.
Yeah, I think this is super clever. Like you're playing on the street sign, and because it's got lane in there, it's there's some depth to it. And this is sorry, mate.
Sorry, but I was just going to touch on that point, because that's the information that's passed over in the brief. That's what the client came to us with. He's like, this has a meaning to me. Brick Lane is a lane in London. It has a special meaning to me, and I want to sort of push that through the brand where I can. And so that's that briefing information that will come through in the finalized product.
Cool. And then what we'll do is we'll sort of, mock it up and show what it's going to look like in the real world through some renders and some, maybe out in the physical environment, all that sort of stuff. So really like selling the dream to the client in terms of how it's going to look out there in the world. So the final step, once the client is super stoked and they've got their new logo, is to put together a thing called a style guide. And you can actually see this playing on screen here, which essentially just runs through. And do you want to talk about what a style guide actually is, Sam, and the benefits of putting or having one of these in your life?
Yeah, so this is the rule book. So we touched on previously the logo in itself. That's just one piece of the full brand, right? The brand is the fonts, it's the color breakdown, it's the rules that come with when utilizing and using the logo in various different marketing mediums. It's all those different rules, right? So you need to have a central source for all that information to be in one, document that you could then hand over to a designer in England, a designer in Singapore, whatever. They're all working on different marketing collateral, but they come back with a similar result because they've got this rule book to follow. So basically, that's what it is.
Yep. And this comes back to that principle of consistency where you can be super consistent out in the world, digitally. Every touch point with a client should be drawing on this rule book, and there should be uniformity there. And as I said, just every single touch point, what that's going to do is help build your brand and build your brand loyalty. So what we're going to do is just show a few before and afters. This one here. This was their previous logo, and this is essentially an Australian-based business that runs tours to mainland China. Sammy, do you want to just talk about sort of the characteristics of this logo and how that came about?
Yeah, so taking something that's quite complex and definitely something that's dated, and just basically simplifying it, bringing it into current trends, and then also allowing an icon that, once again, when it's reduced in sizing, still has legibility. The one on the left, you could see, imagine decreasing the sizing of that down to, say, 20 pix by 20 pix.
Yep.
It will turn into just a mash of colors. Whereas one on the right, you could separate the simplistic icon. The icon has, an underlying message based on Chinese culture, and a knot where it's an icon for good luck. So those points that could be touched on as well.
That's cool. And so you said dated. Like, why is this dated? Tell me why this is dated.
Probably just that point that I touched on in terms of where, if it was reduced in sizing, a massive part of current brand direction where you need to be having that foresight. So it's been something that's condensed in the digital world where everything's going these days, it's still legible. Also, you can see the complexity in the left. You're dealing with a red and a grey within, a typography section, which could cause legibility issues for someone older. Various different things that I could continue on with, but I'll leave that where it is.
So I'm hearing simplicity is the key, and that's a real trend in current branding. And this is how it then translates to a digital presence. So we say your brand is your foundation. It's the bedrock. It's everything that your sort of marketing is built on. And you can see how nicely this just translates to the digital world. Another example. So this is a construction company doing like big civil projects out there in regional New South Wales. Like big bickies they're talking about, and you look at this logo, and it looks like it was designed in 1982, which it probably was. So maybe talk about this logo here. Yeah,
it served its purpose, but once again, we can see sort of like a similarity trait occurring here, where it's the complexity of the previous one and this one as well, complexity involved. There's a hard hat in there. Let's not get too literal with this. Let's just have it as a simplistic logo that could be interpreted by anyone in their own, in their own way. But it's just the cleanliness, I think, is the fundamental point there.
Cool, nice. And then this is their website. So for a construction business, we'll share all these links. Just really nice, clean, simplistic website. You can see how the brand just sits so nicely in that homepage. This is a tourism-based business, Sterren Park, down in Bonnie Doon. We're going to Bonnie Doon, and it's a big property. So you've taken a different approach here. Maybe talk about this approach.
Yeah, so with this one, it is a little bit different. There is quite a bit of complexity involved with this one, because what we were doing is we were dealing with a brand that needed to reflect one single residence, one location that was a holiday letting home, and that made it unique. It made it special, and there's only going to be a one-off of that. Also sort of, I guess, visually displaying the expectations of what the potential new client would be getting themselves into when they go to stay at Sterren Park, right? They're seeing this homely vibe. We're using these sort of soft palettes with the cream at the top. Yep. Nothing too saturated to also express the location, being Bonnie Doon, organic, farmscape, that sort of style. So, and that's a really cool example where you can sort of see the brand being reflected through the photography, which is the actual location.
Yeah. And then these nice little details in the interface and all that sort of stuff. And then and just another little point, you've interchanged. So we from a design perspective, you've used the simplified version in the interface, but then laid in the more complex version
Yeah,
throughout.
with that brick lane as well. We said brick lane, there was 2 segments, right? That's taking into account these sorts of situations where if
Yeah.
it's trying to put the full logo in there, legibility is going to be an issue. So you break it up.
Cool. And then just a final example, a property developer. So like, I don't think this was a fundamentally broken brand, but I think the step forward from an evolution perspective is a really good one. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. When placing this into the presentation, I was like, are we going to use this or not? Because the fundamentals are there with the previous the logo in terms of the simplicity. I just felt more effort could have been placed into it. I guess the color palette was something that also needed to be looked at, something that's more approachable. I guess a broad spanning sort of target audience from your mid-20s through to your 60s. So I sort of dug into that and figured out the best approach for that.
This color palette, like, this looks awesome, complements the imagery really nicely. So I think it's a really good step forward. So that is branding. We have covered the content that we wanted to cover today. I'm going to throw it out to everyone to see if you have any questions, any burning questions, feedback, comments, anything. A joke, thumbs up. Not right now. Hopefully that's been helpful. Has that been helpful to everyone here? Just to sort of peek behind the curtain of a design process. And as we said, this is really just the starting of the process. Then there's a whole subsequent research and design phase when we get into other pieces of the puzzle, like the interface, all that sort of stuff. Sammy, would you like to leave the attendees with any profound words of wisdom?
No, I'm checking the comments out. Daryl, good reminder for the consistency, mate. That's what it's about. Logo is just one piece of it. Just remember that. Your brand identity is a lot more than that. And just stay consistent with those rules and entrust your designer to do the best thing that he can do and deliver the best result for you. Something that John's heard a million times is, you trust your plumber to fix your sink. So plus you trust your designer to come up with. Just entrust us. Try and move out of the way as the business owner and let us do what we do best, and we'll deliver for you.
It's the logo trust fall, Sammy. You got to just fall back into it.
Totally.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you, everyone. Just so you know, we've been doing these monthly. Next month, we are talking all things photography and videos. As we sort of move through this process, we look at visual assets, and it is crucial that you just nail your visual assets, photography, video, and we're presenting the ultimate guide to photography and video for your website. So that's on Thursday, the 22nd of April, 12 noon. We will get an invite out to that. We'd love to see you again. Thanks for taking the time to join us.